Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Did you ever wonder what did people do before there were food stamps? Our government has always given out basic foods to those in need. And let me show you what are the commodities, the basic commodities that the U.S. government used to give to needy families. They used to give them flour, sugar, cornmeal, oatmeal, cans of chicken, peanut butter. It actually came in a can at that time. Now it comes in a jar. Canned vegetables and canned fruits. Those are the foods that the government would provide to those in need. These are basic foods. You'd think people would be happy to have them, and it would go a long way toward feeding their family. But it turned out a lot of this food was wasted because people did not know how to use basic food. They didn't know what to do with flour, sugar, cornmeal, oatmeal. They didn't know how to make a meal out of that. So then our nation went to food stamps so that people could go to the grocery store and choose some of the foods. We know that it seemed more reasonable at that time then to give people food stamps so that they could go to the grocery store and buy foods that they were familiar with and knew how to prepare, and then would make sure that food wasn't wasted going to their families. Let's think about the foods that as preppers we're choosing to stockpile so that we have the foods that we can provide meals for our family. We know how to cook them, we know what they taste like, and we know what we're going to do. We have a plan of feeding our family for as long as possible in any kind of an emergency situation. But now let's think about it. As preppers, we don't store these exact same things anymore. Preppers seem to always want to start with rice and beans. Isn't it interesting that rice and beans weren't in the original commodities that were given out to Americans? But now we're always hearing, start with rice and beans. The choices are different now. If you're stocking up in rice and beans, be sure that you understand how to prepare them, how to make meals with them. Rice is very simple to prepare. Beans are easy to prepare. But if you've never done it and you don't know how to make them flavorful and tasty, then you could be in just as much trouble as the original people receiving these commodities that didn't know what to do with flour, sugar, cornmeal, oatmeal. You don't want to be in a position that you don't know what to do with just flour and sugar. You wouldn't know how to make a meal. You want to make sure that if you're storing beans and rice, you know what to do with them. Rice is simple. 2 cups of water, 1 cup of rice, bring it to a boil, put on the lid and simmer it for 20 minutes. And then your rice is prepared. Beans need to cook for much longer. That's one reason that people like to buy canned beans or other canned foods. But if you're looking at the longest lasting dried foods, you have to know that beans are one of the longest lasting. They're simple to prepare, provide a lot of protein and nutrition, but you need to have a lot of water and you need to have a lot of time. I've made several videos on how to prepare dried beans in the crock pot. Beans are simple to prepare in the crock pot. You want to rinse them well, pick out anything that doesn't belong in there, fill your crock pot with water over your beans, maybe add a few spices, put on the lid and cook them all day. They're as simple as that. There are other ways that you can cook dried beans, but to me that's the easiest, and so it's something that I prefer doing. I'll put links to some of those videos I've made on how to prepare dried beans if you're not familiar with it and you haven't tried it. You definitely need to understand what it takes to prepare beans so that you're not caught off guard in an emergency situation and that's all the food that you have. That's why you want to make sure that you have lots of tear open and eat foods that don't require any cooking. So in emergency situations, you don't have to go and start cooking beans and rice. You can tear open a granola bar. You can open a can of something and just eat it out of the can if you have to, so that you are ready to get on with your life and take care of whatever the emergency is. Then you want to have a lot of easy to prepare foods that are packaged and canned foods that you could maybe do a little bit of cooking. Macaroni and cheese, noodle and rice mixes, cans of different foods that you could mix together to turn into simple meals. One of the things that I like to do is add a few cans that would go together to make a meal. I put them in a Ziploc bag. I call them a shelf meal. And then I can put them in the pantry, and when I need something to eat, I don't want to think about it, I can just pull one of those meals out. I'll put links in the description on how to make the meals in a bag. Then you can figure out what meals you enjoy eating, and you can pull out that meal in a bag and get a meal on the table for your family. It's all about choices, and that's why we want to really think about what are our choices, what are our needs and requirements, our tastes, and what do we feel comfortable with, the amount of food we can store, the amount of water that we can have to go with that food. And we also then need to have an idea of how we're going to use the foods that we store. You shouldn't be storing foods you don't have an idea of how to cook it, what to do with it, how to make a meal with it, what it can go with, and even varieties of ways to prepare it so you don't have food fatigue. You can add a different sauce, add a different spice, stir it with rice, stir it with pasta, serve it over mashed potatoes. There's lots of different choices, but you need to have thought about that before you add those foods into your pantry. Also, never stock up on foods that you haven't ever tried. Say you see a can of some kind of beefaroni or something, and you're not sure if you'd like it. Buy one and take it home and try it. If you like it, go back and get more. And if you don't like it, you can choose something else until you find the things that you do enjoy eating and you are willing to eat. Those are the foods that you want. Then remember, your pantry, except for maybe the longest lasting dried foods, which you should still be using, rotating some of those, needs to be a working pantry. You should be working your way through it. You want to use, rotate, and replace those foods. Canned foods aren't going to last forever. You have a few years on them, but then they're going to not be any good anymore, and the cans can even give out, and then your food can be rotten inside even if the can looks okay. You don't want to come to an emergency situation and then you go, where was that canned food? And you open it up and it isn't fit to eat. That's worse than having nothing to eat, because you have a false sense of security that you are prepared when in fact you are not. So you need to use, rotate, replace those foods so that you continue to have the freshest food possible in your stockpile. That's why you want to buy foods that you are interested in eating, or they're going to languish in there until they aren't any good anymore. That's a waste of grocery dollars and your pantry space. So think about the basic foods and the problems they had, and you don't want that to become a problem for yourself when you have unlimited choices practically of foods that you can gather up, preserve yourself, or buy them already preserved and put away so that you can have that food when you need it. One thing that's easy to do that I like to do is I buy the food already stored in a number 10 can, especially something like, say, flour. If you buy flour in a bag, it has a short lifespan, but if you buy flour already canned and sealed in a number 10 can designed to last for a long time, this can last for many, many years. I've opened these after many years and they were still fine and perfectly good to eat. I buy foods in number 10 cans, for example, like this flour from the LDS or the Mormon Church. You can go online to their website and you can order foods in a 6-pack. It comes in a box with 6 of the same food for not very much money, and it's like $3 to ship it to your house. You can also find number 10 cans from, say, August Farms, and I've ordered those from Amazon, or I find them at Walmart, and then you can have a huge variety, much more diverse foods that way. Everything from just add water meals to fruits and vegetables, powdered butter, powdered honey even, and then you can have those varieties in your pantry of all those different kinds of foods, that those can last up to 30 years as well. But you do want to look at the labels. They all aren't going to last the same amount of time. It will clearly state on the label how long that food will last. So think about your choices. Leave it in the comments below. What foods do you find are the basics that are inexpensive, long-lasting, and they're easy to make meals for your family so that you don't have to worry in the future? We can learn from each other if we share information, and let's keep that dialogue going. We know we're not alone in our prepping journey. I hope you'll like my video, share it. please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.